This video is sponsored by Shortboxed, the easiest and safest way to buy and sell graded comic books. Download the app today using the link in the description. Reggie here, and I want to welcome you to another one of my videos. In this video, we are going to talk about 5 costly mistakes that I see people making on a regular basis. But before we get to the list, I want to remind you that this is a video that is sponsored by my friends over at Shortbox. And simply for watching this video and leaving a substantive comment behind, you can actually get into the running for a $100 credit. And the winner will be announced at an upcoming Comics Today show. So make sure that you watch the video in its entirety and leave that comment behind. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, I want to ask you to do me a favor and do that now. With that said, let's get to the 5 things. The first costly mistake that I want to talk about is not asking about the method of shipping after making a purchase. Now, the truth of the matter is that we have all been guilty of this at one time or another. But I have seen, and you probably have as well, all of the videos here on YouTube in which people are super excited about the comic that they just purchased, the deal that they just landed. And then all of a sudden, the video gets extremely dark as they unbox whatever it is that they picked up and realized that the packaging was not sufficient or adequate to actually protect the comic in transit. Now, the one thing that I will oftentimes say to people when they reach out to me about situations like this is I will ask them whether they reached out to the seller to actually inquire about the method of shipping. And almost every single time, people never ask that question. They find the book, they buy the book then shows up and it's damaged. And a lot of this damage could potentially be avoided simply by asking questions before the purchase or immediately after the purchase about how the person intends to ship the comic. The reality is that a lot of folks out there that are selling comics potentially don't know the proper way to ship a comic, despite the fact that there are countless videos out there on YouTube and certainly on my channel that can provide that guidance. So what I will tell you is that if you buy a book, reach out to the seller, talk about the method of shipping, and avoid this costly mistake. The second costly mistake that I want to talk about is purchasing books at the peak of their popularity. And this is really tough to do because of all of the FOMO and the excitement and the apps and the auctions that go on a regular basis that compel us to actually jump on comics. The challenge is that if you are buying a comic at the height of its popularity because of a movie or a TV show or just because the book appeared on a hot list, then you may be potentially overpaying for that comic. Now, over the last couple of years, what's been great is that prices have continued to increase, which means that if you do overpay, the market would actually fix it. It would actually correct it because the value would catch up with what you paid. The challenge, however, is that potentially that trend will not continue. And so this could be a very costly mistake if we're not paying attention to how much we're paying and when we're buying certain books. To that point of auctions, that actually brings me to my third costly mistake that I see people making, and it's not asking for additional photos or close-up shots of comics that they happen to be buying. I know for a fact that there are people out there that have purchased comics online from a single blurry photo and without any additional details provided. I've seen people in the heat of an auction actually buy a comic without asking for the overall condition or asking for close-up shots. They simply look at the price, they have that amount of money, and they buy the book. And in many of these cases, people end up being disappointed because the book that shows up, while is a good price, the condition isn't quite what they expected. And so one of the best pieces of advice that I could give is to slow things down, ask some questions, make sure that you are getting a book that meets the criteria that you have for your collection or for that book, and you're not just looking at the dollar amount of the actual sale. The fourth costly mistake that I see people making on a regular basis is that they buy comics without referencing a price guide of some sort. I had a person reach out to me recently that was excited about a comic that they recently picked up, and they asked me if it was a good deal. And within a minute, I was able to pull that book up in that grade in a pricing service and had to tell them that they had actually overpaid by more than $300 for this comic. That was hard news for me to give the person, and it was certainly hard news for this person to receive. Pricing guides and pricing services exist for a reason. This information is incredibly valuable to us to allow us to make informed decisions about how we spend our money. Now, it's one thing to overpay on purpose for a comic that you really want. It's another thing to accidentally overpay for something and then realize that you actually overpaid. Do yourself a favor. Get a pricing service. Pay for it or use one of the free ones like comicpriceguide.com. They have some free access to be able to look up pricing. You can use eBay if you know how to use eBay the right way. Even though that's not a pricing guide, there is data there that is valuable. Before you spend your hard-earned money, make sure you do a little bit of research. The fifth costly mistake that I see people making is that they buy comics without a goal or a purpose in mind. As I've said in previous videos, it is easy to spend money. It is another thing to spend money in service of a greater goal. And I'm not saying you have to have some crazy lofty goal, but have a purpose for the money that you're spending. Otherwise, you spend money here, you spend money there, you spend money everywhere, and you end up with boxes of comics that don't mean anything to you at all. Take the time, set a goal, have a purpose, and then spend your money in service of achieving that objective. With that said, I'm going to wrap this video up. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch, and I hope that you enjoyed it. If you need to reach out to me, feel free to do so on Instagram at Regie Collects. And don't forget to leave a substantive comment behind on this video for an opportunity to win a $100 credit from my friends over at Shortboxed. The winner will be announced on an upcoming Comics Today show, which takes place on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Take care.